My talk today is going to be about how can we build great web APIs with Liferay, and why would we want to build web APIs? Because, okay, Liferay ships with a good deal of functionality contained in services. I guess you all are accustomed to working with Liferay, and you all know all the services that we have. And also, you know that these services normally have a very large, and when I say large, I mean large API, okay? Our services solve a great deal of situations, and they provide a lot of solutions that require normally a lot of information. So you will normally not always want to export that to your end users. That's what, by default, Liferay does, exposing the services API. How many of you here have used a remote services API in Liferay? Okay, so you guys know what we're talking about, right? So they are automatically exported, and these very large APIs are translated to the client, and that's not what we always want to do, okay? So it would be desirable to be able to fine-tune these several aspects of the API, like which methods and which parameters we want to expose. And though we can do already this in Liferay, it's normally done in development time. So you need to add annotations to your services, which is not always what you want to do, because you may want some methods exposed in one API, while you want another methods exposed in another API, and you don't necessarily have that information when you are developing the service. So it would be suitable to find a new way to have that. Also, the data representation. We have a good deal of fields, for instance, in the user model, okay, that Liferay provides, which is the example that I'm going to make next. And you may not want to expose all that information to all the clients or to all the applications that are going to use your APIs. So we are going to fine-tune what we want to be exported. And also error handling. Okay, it's very typical, and it's also a security issue, for instance, that if you are doing an operation that it's not allowed in the service because you don't have the privilege or whatever, to throw a forbidden. But you may not want to do that because there are some people out there that they are looking and they are going to hit your server with different IDs until they find the forbidden one, so they kind of harvest the existing IDs in your server, and they try further to break your system. So maybe we want to serve a 404 not found for everything that you try to do, which you don't have privileges. So how are we going to achieve this? There are already standards out there to write SOAP and REST APIs. Those are called JAX-WS and JAX-RS. Are you here aware? How many people here are aware of these standards? Okay, a lot of people. Yeah, there are long existing standards. So let's use those. I mean, why not? They are there, they work. So we are going to leverage the OSGI capabilities that we have in the Liferay framework to provide the functionality configurable for our users. So declarative services is the technology that would allow us to access Liferay services. We are not forced to use declarative services. Those who were in the unconference these days and talk to me or other people regarding OSGI already know this. We are not forcing everybody to use declarative services. It's just that we recommend you to use because you are going to be happier. Okay? You're going to be more safe if you use declarative services. But you can use any other way of accessing OSGI. And we are going to leverage JAX-RS or JAX-WS extension mechanisms to supply Liferay-related tools. Okay, I guess that one of the reasons that you would like to expose services within Liferay is to use the existing Liferay services outside. So it would be desirable to have Liferay functionality available in your APIs. And also, the configuration, the system should be flexible on where and how do I want to deploy my endpoints. Ideally, it will also allow to wire different applications using different configurations. Like if I need to add a new endpoint to an existing application, I would like to do that while not having necessarily to rewrite the whole application, for instance, or adding a new filter or provider or security mechanism, authentication method, whatever, okay? So we are going to leverage on configuration admin for that, which is a service within OSGI. And with Liferay, we're going to provide a configuration console to interact with configuration admin, okay? Today, we are going to do a demo regarding this. And we are going to show here some developer tools. So this is not necessary and will not be the final aspect of some of these tools, but we are going to use some development time tools. So for the purpose of this demo, just the guys back there, if you don't see correctly, you can just say so, and I will try to make things bigger, not so bigger. OK, so for the purpose of this demo, I've created an application in a language that is not Java. Okay, it's totally unrelated to Liferay, with the intention to demonstrate that you can interact with different universe, not having anything to do with Liferay, Java, or whatever, which is our main intention. You just think about this application like a mobile application or any other. So this is not the application. This is a development console installed inside Liferay, which allows us to configure different components that are running in the framework. Okay. So what we are looking here is that we have endpoint configuration. So we are saying that we want to be able to deploy APIs under the path SOAP, okay, as you can see here. And we're also saying that we want basic authentication available in this endpoint path, okay? We also have here a configuration that says that under REST context path, we want to have all the portal session verifiers available, okay? So now we have two endpoints. As you can see here, we are using CXF for this. So all this is implemented on top of CXF. We are now telling Liferay that we want all the JAX-RS application, which are annotated with a true value on them, are going to be deployed on REST path, okay? So now we are setting our system. And we are also saying that, yes. We are also going to say that we want to deploy every component which is annotated with JAX-WS to true inside SOAP, under SOAP context path. And we're also saying that if we find any handler, any JAX-WS handler, we are going to deploy that as well within our endpoints here, okay? So the good part of this is that we can provide any number of these configurations, and Liferay will automatically adapt and will generate the endpoints immediately, okay? So you can change your deployment and build the graph of objects that you want. So just to, how does, I'm going to focus the demo in JAX-RS because I guess that you guys are more lately seeing JAX-RS. I don't know, it's kind of more trendy. So we are going to basically show here how to deploy a JAX-RS application in Liferay. This is the component annotation. I guess you have seen it already these days. So this is declarative service annotation. And it's telling the framework that we want this component to be immediately instantiated and that it comes with the JAX-RS application true parameter that we are filtering in our configuration. So this will be automatically deployed in our endpoint. So we are publishing this as an application because it needs to be an application from JAX-RS because this is the only portable way to actually write an JAX-RS application. So we are using this. So As you can see here, I am using declarative services, just like my colleagues Manu and Christina did just before. So I'm asking for Liferay services here. This is the users, sorry, not Liferay services here. I'm asking for the actual implementation of the resource, which is going to have all the gets and posts and puts annotations on it. Okay, so I'm getting this from the framework, and I'm returning it in my application. How many of you have ever written an application like this, a JAX-RS application? Okay, some of you. Okay, so you are familiar with this. Any of you who is not familiar with this, I'm going to be very fast around this. So if you want more information, you can find me later, and we can talk about this. But it's really simple. What we're doing here is that we are going to deploy these two objects, which are singletons or something like that. And we are going to annotate this with JAX-RS annotations. Okay, so this is the actual resource that the application is deploying. And as you can see, this is also a component. And here you go. And this is a component because we are using here, we are collecting references to Liferay services. Okay, this is the user service inside Liferay. This is image service inside Liferay. And we are going to create some methods here. These annotations are JAX-RS standard annotations. So what we're saying here is basically if we are hit with a get method in the root of our context, we are serving this method. And if we are hit with something after the trailing slash, we are going to treat that as a parameter of our method, and we are making here the translation. So here we say, OK, fetch the parameter that comes in the URL and feed it to me like a long in my method. So it's very easy for us to translate these calls to our Liferay services. It's almost immediate to do that. And we can see the result now. I must confess that I'm going to cheat a bit because I'm going to change the implementation, just changing the branch of my Git here. And what's actually deploying the server is the latest version. So this is not what you're going to see, but sort of, OK? Just we don't have enough time to. So this is an application that I've created in another language, OK? And it's going to hit the server with HTTP requests. So let's see how it goes. I'm going to ask the application to use JSON and to use authentication, OK? And I'm going to ask for all the users. So this is some scripting that I have prepared ahead of time. So I'm going to say all to ask for all the users in the platform. And this is what we get. So it's like, wow, right? This is a brick of JSON, which is kind of what we expected because it's what we asked. And we can see what is what we are asking for. Actually, what we did is a plain get to the URL of our application. As we could see before, this O means OGI under Liferay. REST is the context that we have configured before. And API users is the path in which we configured our application before to be deployed. Remember that? I can show it to you. Here. OK, so everything is in place. So what we get in return? What we are getting here is a huge brick of JSON with all the users' information. So let's see how we build this information. We can parse it. We can ask the system to parse it for us. So this is proper JSON. I asked for just give it a dictionary out of it. So this is proper JSON working. So if we go to the resource again, which is which is the actual implementation of this, we see here that we have returned just the plain user, a list of users returned by Liferay. So you may be thinking, okay, this guy told me before that I could be able to choose what data representation I wanted for my API. So what's going on here under the hood? I can register in using JAX-RS. I can register these classes, which are body writers, okay, that implement this interface, that state how I want bin to be written as a resource, okay? So in this case, what we are doing under the hood is to turn this user model from Liferay into what I call a REST user. Just don't look at all this boilerplate. It's super easy, but it's boilerplate. And I turn this into a REST user, which is annotated with this XML root element. So this class is just using JAX-B, which is a standard in JAX-RS and JAX-WS, to explain how this must be marshaled out and from JSON and also XML. That's why it's called XML root element. So this got the super cool effect that now I can also ask my system to use XML instead of JSON. So I will do that. I will ask my application, please use XML now and give me all the users. And this is the result that we get. So if we use the standard in a proper way, we can get a lot of from it. And we didn't have to touch any line of code from our application. Okay. So this is great. But we can also ask for a concrete user. Okay, so both the methods we have shown are working. So we can do JSON, of course. Okay, and we can see that the URL that we are using here is just the URL that we said before. It's the same as the former one with the list, but specifying the ID. Okay, that's cool. But I don't want this brick of JSON to be returned every time, because it's like 220 users inside the database. So I want to be able to do more cool stuff. So then I'm going to make a switch, and I'm going to enhance the API a bit. So we are going to see the users resource now. So you may not notice now, but this is a super enhanced version of what we had before, because we are going to leverage JAX-RS capabilities to inject some Liferay information inside our API. First thing that we can see here is that now we are no longer asking for the company. So the company now is getting injected by a Liferay inside our API as a parameter. And it's using virtual hosts or whatever other way that we want to pass this company to our API. In this example, it's using the virtual host. But you may want, for instance, an endpoint to use a specific company for that case and no other. So you can choose the way you can provide this company here. The point is that you can reuse this, this application in many scenarios without having to touch the code necessarily. And we can see here that we are also asking for a pagination object. That is something that I made up, which will allow us to ask for less or more number of elements in our response. And we are also returning a page, which will also give us some perks, like the related hyperlinks to follow navigation that are very common in REST APIs. So let's see the result now. I will ask my application to use only 2 elements in the result. So I will ask for all the users again. So what I get here is just only 2, as I requested. And we can see now new parameters here, which are, I want the first page, and I want 2 items per page. But if you see, our application is not dealing with those parameters directly as it did before, but it's hidden inside this pagination mechanism here. So how do we do this? We can provide a page message body writer and a pagination provider. Okay, these providers are the way that you can extend CXF. This is one caveat that we have here, because these providers are standard, but there's no standard way to include them in the framework. So each vendor has its own way to configure them. But we are doing this for you using this context provider in the system. So you can do all kinds of stuff, and in the end, what it's doing is that whenever you are asked for a pagination object under a context annotation, then you are gonna be called, and you can prepare everything. Okay, so we provide the object. And the same thing with the page. We have a page message body writer, just the same as user, and it's going to do a lot of stuff. But what I find interesting here is that we can also alter the headers of the response. So what we want to do why we want that? Because now we can also provide these links here, which are links to the next page or the last page. And these links are fully working. They are automatically adapted to the next page or the last page. So our application can react to them. So I can ask now for, please give me the next page. Okay, so yes, I can navigate to the last page. You can see that the links are being updated automatically, and we can just, for instance, go to the last page too, and it's gonna work. Okay, so this is some way to do a very super something that is not attached or well, yeah, it's not it's something different, so you don't need to change your code every time. It's uncoupled. Sorry, I didn't find the word. It's uncoupled from the implementation. So one of the things that many of you have told us before is that it's very difficult, for instance, to create a user in the application, because you have to pass this huge amount of information to the service you may not want in first place to provide. So what we can do also is to say, okay, when I want a new user created in the application, I want it to be only 4 fields. And I will create the rest of the needed fields in my API. So my customers or my client application don't need to take the burden of that. So for the purpose of showing this, I created this small script which will allow me interactively to create a new user in Liferay. Okay? So we are going to say, okay, Carlos. You can email anything to me there. Okay, so I say. Okay, so what we can see here is that I sent a post to the server with this JSON. Only those fields inside a JSON. And I have created a user in Liferay. Here I got the result. So this is the user I have created. So I can now ask for it. And I can also browse the information there. Okay. So I'm running out of time. I wanted to show that you can also play with languages. You can also negotiate the content in different languages. For example, the prefixes, how to address people. We have this translation inside the user interface. So you can also ask for, now we are using German here. And I can say, OK, give me the prefixes in German. So now I'm Herr Carlos Sierra here. And the difference between this call and the former call is that I accept a different language here. Can you see the header? So now I'm sending German. If I switch to English, the difference is the accept language. So this is fully HTTP compliant, so it's REST. And the point is that we can adapt this and use our application in a very uncoupled way. So I didn't have time to show more of the things that I have here prepared. So if you have any doubts or questions, I will be more than happy to answer them later. If you have any question now, we have 4 minutes. So
okay. Please raise your hand. Yeah, over there is a question. The mic is coming to you.
Is that replacing Liferay JSON web service?
excuse me?
Is that replacing Liferay JSON web service, the legacy, which is available in Service Builder?
JSON web services will be still available if you are concerned about that.
Yeah.
We are not replacing, we are not getting rid of the current implementation of JSON RPC. But this is something which is going to be available in Liferay 7 that you can just disable it. You can uninstall this. So it's kind of optional. It's going to be there, but you can just remove the support, just getting rid of the jars and the bundles, and you don't have this. If you
Thank
don't
you.
want.